I'm Howard Bragman. This is Gwissues. Today I'm with some of America's most prominent out broadcast journalists, and we're going to talk about Jodie Foster's recent speech at the Golden Globes, where she sort of came out, among other things. The speech was a little rambling, a little unusual. Anybody who wasn't comfortable with the speech or just thought it was weird, off-center, or were we pretty okay with it, guys?
I wasn't sure exactly what she was saying. I was like, what is she talking about? And then so it's kind of like Charles mentioned earlier as we were talking in a different conversation. You have to go back and look at it, and then you kind of get it. Like, okay, but initially I was like, did she? Didn't she? What? I was looking at my friend. We were watching together. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here, but it was a beautiful speech nonetheless.
Why did she get so much negative? It was such a beautiful speech. There were so many in our community, other performers, and some of the groups that really jumped down her throat.
I think it was interesting. I mean, it's certainly not a staying in speech, so I don't think anybody can, question where Jodie Foster is in her life. But this is a woman who's been in front of the public eye since she was 3. 50 years old, she's getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, and she's lived her life in a public venue through, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I mean, decade after decade in front of all of us, and we're all wondering, what her personal life is all about, or waiting for her to make some kind of magnanimous statement about coming out. So I don't think anybody can discount at this point that she is announcing that she's a lesbian, and she's a happy woman, and she's a mom, and she's, apparently single, so she's got that going for her. So it was a big dating ad that night. But in looking at where she is, I don't think anybody can discount all the other people that have allowed Jodie Foster to be on that stage at 50 years old and give that incredible speech that she gave. There are a lot of people, well-known and not, that have gone before to do a lot of hard work that have made that stage possible for her. And so she can be up there and, accept that Lifetime Achievement Award and talk about her life in a complete sense. So I think it's great. I mean, I think it's fantastic. But she has lived her entire life publicly. I mean, it's almost impossible.
Well, I really took that as the centerpiece of it, because I deal with publicity and privacy, and those are the issues. And celebrities, when do they talk about things? When do they not? And
but Howard and Thomas, don't you think that? I think when you were asking about why she got so much negativity, I think people wanted, especially people in the gay community, probably wanted a more declarative statement from her rather than a more nuance. It was so nuanced, and it was like. It was almost like in politics you call it a dog whistle, right? She was speaking to the people who understood, and the people who didn't, it probably went right over their heads. So they probably wanted a more like, hello, I'm Jodie Foster, I am a lesbian. And
yeah, I think what people want and what they do are different things. And I think, Thomas, you hit a very important point. For the vast majority of her life, she's been a public figure. And, let's not forget that somebody tried to kill President Reagan, a guy named John Hinckley, using her as the excuse for it. Right. And for me, the speech was much more about privacy and celebrity than about coming out. And I thought coming out was a small part of her speech.
Well, Howard, you're getting on something which is what struck me. What I heard when I first heard the speech was about privacy. She sort of suggested that somebody who would come out in that sort of way was kind of Honey Boo Boo-ish, and she used Honey Boo Boo as an example. And so I hear Don and I hear Thomas, and it's funny because I had the same reaction maybe Don and his friends did, but then I had to sit back and I had to come to where Thomas just is, which is that this is a woman who really is comparable to few other people. A Michael Jackson, an Elizabeth Taylor, people who really were thrust into the public eye very early and don't know any other reality. And as I watched the speech again, I realized this is somebody who her whole life has been struggling to find some semblance of normalcy.
Right.
And so when I heard it again, I understood that. But I think that a lot of people out there wanted the kind of declaration that I don't say we don't need anymore, but certainly people like Ellen, and you guys right there have helped make less necessary, and maybe the declaration she needed to make is what she did, which is I'm a private person.
Well, I've always defended celebrities' rights to come out on their terms in their times, and more importantly, even with their own words. And I'll tell you, I think Jodie has lived an honest life. I've known her a long time. I worked on the movie Nell, I don't know how many years ago, 15, 17 years ago, and she's never hidden who she is. It's never been a secret in Hollywood. She has thanked her former partner Sidney before publicly, which people said was coming out. And I'm much more a fan of that than the people we all know about who are living a lie.
Right.
I'm surprised that when I heard she was getting that award, I never expected that style or kind of speech from her. I mean, I thought that it was going to be a strictly thank you for this awesome achievement, my life as an actor, look at this history that was on screen. I never thought she was going to go down the road that she went. And she pulled us all in automatically, and I thought, well, this is going to be a wild ride. But I never thought that was the acceptance speech we were even entitled to. Right. So I was very surprised.
Well, she was nervous too. She was nervous. You could see it.
Well, and a lot of people said she was buzzed, which I'm not sure I buy, but I think you're right. I think there were some nerves, but I was much more offended by her table mate, who is Mel Gibson, her old friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all notice that, but come on. Hollywood, America's about redemption, especially Hollywood. So,
It is, and I think it's a delicate balance for all of us, and for those who will come, between privacy and what's my obligation to another generation of young gay men and women, or people of color in some cases, or whatever. What's my obligation to let them know it's okay, and I survived and I succeeded, and that can happen for you too.
I think when Charles, you were talking about Thomas and I and everybody, whoever has come out, where people don't need to make that declaration. Listen, you can do what you want, and I'm a big fan of that, of freedom. You can do whatever you want. I personally don't think that we're at a place now where people cannot be declarative about who they are. If you're gay, I think that people still need to hear that, and you need to make it as plain as possible, especially for the kids who are getting bullied and beaten up and who may, want to harm themselves because they think that something is wrong with them. I think you should say it as forthrightly as you can if you are in a position to do it, and just come out and say, hey, I'm gay, hey, I'm a lesbian, and not really beat around the bush. Now, whether you do that or not, that is your own business. But my personal belief is you should say it, not only for yourself, but for the others who come behind you and who you may be able to help, and the lives you may be able to save. That's my personal opinion.
Great. I really thank you for this today. This is Gwissues, and we want to thank our guests, Charles Perez, Don Lemon, and Thomas Roberts. Great discussion, guys. Thank you so much.